you were drinking a smoothie just a moment ago. Is that part of your morning routine? Because we're big smoothie proponents.
It is. That's second breakfast.
Smoothie.
What's the first one?
One piece of toast.
Oh, okay.
What? That's not breakfast. That's why you need
with
to.
nothing on it. And then I go and part of my morning ritual is weight training, high impact weight training, and a bit of cardio. So I'll have one piece of toast before I go to the gym. And then when I get home, I'll have a smoothie, which, is a banana, some creatine, 2 scoops of protein powder, water, and oatmeal. I have 2 servings of oatmeal that I blend in the Vitamix. It's a quick way to get down those carbohydrates.
We don't have oatmeal, but we use peanut butter, which can be...
You're drinking out of the bottle from the Vitamix.
You don't even put it in a glass. It's straight from the blender.
I'm a huge advocate of peanut butter. All day. Love it. It's great.
It's addicting.
It is. It's
peanut butter
addicting.
and jelly sandwiches I have them every day almost.
Really?
That's like an afternoon power hour snack. That'll get me through like 2 hours before dinner.
Yeah.
That is a very American snack. I don't know. Marina, some friends, have you ever had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich?
Well, I have been in the States long enough that I did.
You have? Okay.
Yeah.
Just checking.
I did not grow up with it, but I am familiar. Yeah.
What was your snack growing up with?
Mostly like a good chunk of a baguette with some Nutella on it. That was my favorite afternoon snack.
With some what on it?
Some Nutella.
Nutella, right. I was thinking of Nutella and I couldn't remember the name. I was going to try to make a joke and seem worldly.
Well, it's kind of the European peanut butter, I would say,
Yeah, I think so.
In a way.
I think that's fair.
Cool.
So, back to the interview. Tell us where you're from originally, and then how did you get into real estate?
Well, I'm from New Jersey and South Florida.
Huh.
My aunt is a broker, and real estate was, as a profession, was always in the back of my mind as something that I believed that I would be good at and have a lot of fun doing. And I decided to give it a shot as a second career. So I kind of migrated west 15, 16, 18 years ago now. Gosh, I'm getting old. I know, time flies.
I know, tell me about it.
And so what prompted the move from the East Coast to the West Coast? And why didn't you move back to the East Coast at some point?
Well, my family and I, we like to be strung out along the telephone lines. It's a bit healthier for me mentally. I eventually moved my mother out. I put her in Palm Springs, which is a fair enough distance to where, you don't come over every day. Mm-hmm. Maybe this isn't going to make it into the podcast. I don't know. Let's see. I do go back. We go back and visit, but I found home, David. I love Los Angeles. I love the energy and the excitement and, the lifestyle and the weather, and it's just all good. Like, I found my home.
So when you made the transition to real estate, and you said you had an aunt who was in that profession, that field, did you have a pretty good understanding of what it was going to entail? Were there any surprises when you first started?
I didn't know anything about anything. I really didn't know my ass from a hole in the wall when I started in real estate. What I knew is that I liked architecture. I'm a people person. I'm a rainmaker. And all of that, kind of rang true to me. And then the idea that I could earn a fair amount of money, have a good living with limitless earning potential. Mm-hmm. I mean, all that was very enticing. So I got licensed and I gave it a shot, and I created my own luck. Mm-hmm. And here we are.
Is it hard to become licensed? I have no idea what is involved.
No, that's one of the challenging things that we deal with in our profession. Is it's too easy to get a real estate license. So
too easy.
So often we're dealing with agents that don't know what they're doing, and they're actually hurting their clients.
Is it because of a lack of experience or training?
Yeah,
okay.
That's exactly it. There is no real training set up in our industry for agents to learn practically how to perform and service a client and help sell a property or help list a property. There just isn't. Some of the big box brokerages have their training programs built in, and they're very vanilla. And in my opinion, they don't really guide people and expose them at the same time. Exposure is huge to what it is we do, because it's not really what you're learning in the Ignite program at Keller Williams or the Coldwell Banker program or the Compass Kool-Aid. It's not. It's a whole different thing.
What makes it different?
Just vague and ambiguous. An example would be, as a new agent, you should hold an open house as soon as possible. Get out there and meet people. More than likely, you're going to be working as a selling agent on the buying end as a new agent. So hold somebody's open house. That's what it is. That's what the instruction is. But often it doesn't dive deeper into what that is. Into when you're at your open house, what are the words you say? How do you communicate with the people that are coming in the door? How do you position yourself to be of service to them and get past the whole salesman thing? That there's a stigma in our industry that agents get paid too much money and we're not very helpful. And a lot of that is true. And it's because of the agents that don't have training and they don't really know what they're doing. And, they're hired by a friend or a family member and, the stories get passed along about how, there were problems in escrow. Right. So that's real. That's a real concern that people have to be concerned about who they're working with. Right. So this is the type of education that ought to be trained to new agents, like really what's going on, understanding what's going on, why it's going on, where we came from, and what we're doing different now. Like this is the kind of stuff that I train my agents. My brokerage is a whole different thing. We're a small group, and I keep it that way by design. And I've handpicked and I work closely with my team, who are now in year 2, most of them, and they're doing very well. We've already opened up new escrows for the beginning of the year. We're not even a week in. And my agents are doing the lion's share of the work now because I've really been able to distill in them a real system that is effective, and it helps them not only service the client, but be able to manage more volume and be organized at the same time.
Real estate groups are very interesting to me because I know they exist, but how they operate and how they come around it is a bit of a question mark. But so back to the training and the licensing, like it sounds like most real estate agents we know, they get into that profession almost as a second profession, as a second career, and they don't necessarily go to out of some real estate program at whatever university to then study that and then get a license. Like there's not that kind of set path that you're describing, perhaps. Whereas like for architecture, like we have schools. You go to school for 5 years, you practice,
totally,
you have exams and et cetera.
Yeah, no, totally. And I hear that. And, it should be more challenging to get, like, I'm a broker, and other than passing the bar, which I'm considering, by the way, California is one of the few states that you don't have to go to law school to apply and pass the bar and be licensed to practice law. Would I use it to practice law? Probably not. I'm very interested in real estate law. And, I read the text for the state of California for all of the real estate law. And I like to point to code when we're working with, clients and just make things very matter of fact. Like, this is what's up. This is how it's interpreted. This is what's going on. Anyhow, so yes, it's way too simple. And the way that it works is you get licensed, and then the brokerage will talk with you and bring you on, and then you'll start their training program. So you'll get licensed, you'll take a few courses, which are very easy to pass, certificate courses, and then you'll have to take one state exam, which is multiple choice. And that's it. It's a half-day exam and you're licensed to practice real estate as long as you're working with a broker who is ultimately the responsible party. But you're good to go. You can start selling homes knowing absolutely nothing on day one. And that's what a lot of agents do.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's...
Your first client as a new agent is 9 times out of 10, it's going to be a family member, colleague, friend, or a referral from one of them to somebody else. And if you're smart, you're going to bring in a mentor or whoever is your responsible person at one of the brokerages with you to your listing appointment and let them do most of the talking. But if you get the listing, that's it. I mean, imagine selling your house to somebody that has no fucking idea what they're doing.
This smoothie makes me laugh.
It happens all the time. Yeah, sorry.
No. I can certainly understand it. So I was trying to imagine from a first person's perspective. Let's say I went and got a license. Right. And I only wish, maybe I don't, but sometimes I wish the architecture licensing was not as hard as it is. But so you get your broker's, your real estate agent's license, and then what do you do next? I guess you go to a brokerage like Compass, like Vanguard or whatever, and maybe they have a program, maybe they don't. And you just start, I suppose. But it would be a very strange sensation to essentially be hired as an expert for something when it's literally, I guess, in a way, your first day on the job.
Yep. You know what I tell my agents that are new? For my new agents, when we go on listing appointments, where it's very important to me that my new agents that know nothing come with me places, and I expose them to the real, the real nuts and bolts of what's going on, right? So eventually they start leading. I put them and I want them to start talking. And one of the big things it's important is that I tell you not to talk. Don't talk about the economy. Don't talk about the weather. Don't talk about your fucking favorite TV show. If you don't have something specific to talk about, why you're here to help them and how you're going to help them with a plan to get what they want, stop trying to make a friend. They're not your friend. They don't want to be your friend. They called us over here because they need something. And so that's really big, that without the knowledge, and as a new agent, that's what a lot of new agents do. They just talk about stuff when they're in interviews or whatever, or listing appointments or with their client, because they don't know what to talk about. They don't know the language that they should use or even really what the steps are to get the person where they want to go.
That's a really good point. And I think actually that comment applies to most professions. When people don't know what to say, they fill in the silence with a bunch of nonsense. And sometimes clients are actually convinced by the amount of... Clients sometimes tend to be more convinced by the amount of noise that's being created. I've seen. And we have to explain sometimes, this is for our profession, like, just because people are spewing out a bunch of stuff, that doesn't mean it's of value, and it doesn't mean it's good. They're very different.
My grandmother told me when I was a little kid, she said, Glenn, sometimes you talk so much you worry me to death. There's a certain point in a sale, or I imagine even in your profession with your projects, that there's a point where you have a commitment, where your client is on board. And then the only place you can go from there is downhill. So just, if you get it and it's a good fit, great. You don't have to just keep talking because it's fun.
Or because you're nervous, I guess. Or
you're nervous, or you just or you're so excited about the opportunity. Let's just keep talking and find out other ways and things that we have in common. Sometimes you just stop. Just go about your day.
I like it. Yeah.
Experience. I mean, look, I've been doing this for 10 years. And in the beginning, it's just, I was as green could go. I didn't even have a mentor. I left Keller Williams. I went to Keller Williams first, and I left Keller Williams on month 6.
Wow.
Did one transaction, and my mentor, God love her. She's a successful agent. For whatever reason, she wasn't what I needed to learn. And I was in tears in her office, like literally in tears in month 6, because I just couldn't put my finger on what was going on. And I didn't know why it wasn't working for me. I wasn't getting the information I needed to understand how to do my job. So I was quickly recruited to Sotheby's. I was rookie of the year. It just kind of clicked. Had to figure it out all on my own. And I did. And I carved my path.
What were some of the things, if you can look back at the first brokerage you worked for, Keller Williams, that were missing that maybe looking back you can see, this was the information I was hunting for, but I couldn't find it or I didn't get it?
Yeah. I needed somebody, I would have liked somebody to have taken me under their wing, my mentor who committed to being my mentor and I committed to being a mentee. It would have been great if I felt as if, I was taken under someone's wing and they were really connecting the dots for me on why we do what we do. And I think that was a problem. Maybe it's just how I think and how I learn. I have a difficult time being told what to do. I'm sometimes, I've been defiant, my whole life in that way where I don't really like authority too much. And I kind of march to my own drumbeat, which is one of the reasons why I have to have complete autonomy with whatever I'm doing. And I work alone.
Yeah.
It's just how I work and it works for me. That doesn't mean I don't work with others well. I just need my own space to create whatever I'm doing. With that being said, I needed somebody to explain to me, why we do what we do. Here's what you do and here's why we do it. Here's why it works this way. I've tried it these other ways and this was the result I got. You can do it this way and take your notes and be mindful about what's happening. It's trial and error. Failing is actually learning, all of that shit, right? And I just didn't get that. I would just get the vanilla generic how to hold an open house. And that's what was missing for me. Maybe I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. I needed a little bit more attention. I needed the short bus on the way to Keller Williams. I didn't get it.
Well, it's kind of interesting because I certainly empathize with the rebelliousness, and I think that's a trait of anyone who has their own business. You start your own business. People start their own businesses for a variety of reasons, but I think one of them is that it's just somewhere laced within these kinds of people is this search for autonomy and the need for it. And it's really hard to function without it, I find for myself.
Yeah.
But also, the mentorship thing is very, very interesting because mentorship doesn't mean just being told what to do. It means being explained, being informed of how it works in great detail or why it works a certain way. Is there within real estate a lot of shielding between upper agents and lower agents?
You mean like internal competition? Sort
of. I'll tell you what to do, but I'm not going to show you everything.
Yeah, a lot of what it is too, it's kind of like a high school where, as you come into the lunchroom, it depends on what table you're sitting at. Okay. You're sitting with these kids, you're sitting with these kids, and it's who you get on with, right? So if you're a newer agent coming in the door, you don't attract the right senior agent or broker to want to help you, you're fucked. You don't really, you're not going to do well, most likely. You need to have something that somebody wants from you. Now you're talking about fear too, I think, because there are a lot of agents that come from a place of scarcity. A lot of them do. They're just afraid. So they come off as assholes or whatever you want to, whatever. But really it's just, you have to shift that, or I do anyway. I try to come from a place of abundance all the time. And I think the more that I can share, and the more that I'm true with how I communicate, the more that I'm in the trenches with my team, my experience has been that they're going to rise to the occasion and they're going to work harder for us as a group, and they stay and they're loyal. And that's how that's been working out.
It makes sense. It's not to get too life coachy recording, but there's a quote that I read the other day that is, I think, totally applicable. It was the best way to be selfish is to be selfless, which is to say, if you just give and give and give, it does come back to you at some point in time. But you have to be so it's kind of a contradictory thing, but I kind of like that as a concise statement. And
that's how I start my morning, David, every day.
Huh.
Part of my ritual, and I was debating whether or not I was going to share this right now today, but we kind of went there. So part of my morning ritual is almost a mantra to the universe that most of the time I get on my knees when I have time. I find it's more effective. Maybe it's just more dramatic. But
yeah, fair.
I do in my dining room. The lights are off. It's 5:30 or it's 5:30 in the morning, just about ready to walk out the door to go train. And I thank the universe for the day, for the ability to be able to do what I'm about to do. Please come with me and help me give it everything I got and allow me to show up today and be the best husband I can be, the best father I can be, the best mentor I can be. Help me leave everybody I touch better than how I found them. This is my mantra that I say to myself every morning, and that gets me off of my feet.
That's lovely.
Or gets me on my feet.
Yeah.
And it's a huge difference. It's huge. I just want to say that one more time. In doing this, and making it a practice, it's allowed me to leverage everybody else in my life too, and almost trust fall into them that they're going to show up and they're going to do the right thing and they're going to rise to the occasion. And nine times out of 10 they do. Do they always? No, but it frees up my mind to not have to think about that stuff.
Right.
I can rather focus on creating something new and how can I share it with my support team so we can all do more.
Right. And it frees up your mind because I suppose in a certain way your conscience is taken care of.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Oh, well, then that too. That's a whole different level of it. But yeah, totally. Yeah. I walk around every day. I'm prepared to go to wherever's next right now. I don't want to. Totally prepared. I've crossed the milestones that I want to pass. I have everything in my life that I've ever dreamed of having. I've never imagined having a supervillain fucking lair on an island somewhere. So thank God. I'm happy.
Well, I think people who have that level of craving there's this kind of a curse, I think, honestly.
Totally.
It really is.
Who knows? Yeah.
So speaking of which, so a bit of more background. So you're in Los Angeles. Where in Los Angeles are you? Where are most of your team? Where does most of your team operate? Is it the east side, the west side, all over, or give us some context?
Totally. So we're the northeast side of LA is where most of our business is. And lion's share of our listings are from Hollywood Hills, East, Los Feliz, Silver Lake, Echo Park, downtown, wraparound, Glassell Park, Mount Washington, Pasadena, Highland Park, Eagle Rock, that whole zhush.
Oh, that's a lot.
Yeah, it's a pretty big little stretch there. I came from the west side. We do, a fair amount of business over on the west side, mostly on the selling side now, working with buyers. And we have 7 agents, or there's 7 of us on the team. And that's what's up with that.
When you, specific note for listeners who are uninitiated, when you say you're working on the selling side, so that means you're representing the person who's trying to sell the house, correct?
No, the buyer. I know it's confusing. The selling side. Okay, so here it goes. When I take a listing, when I'm representing a seller, what I do is I have a listing agreement. In the listing agreement, I kind of outline commission. I say, this is what the commission is going to be, and here's what I'm going to share with the selling brokerage who comes with the buyer. Somebody will come with a willing and able buyer that's able to perform, and I'm going to share the commission fee that I take for the listing with that brokerage.
I see.
We call that the selling agent who's coming in to sell the house. You're the listing agent.
Okay.
Is it typical to share the commission?
Yeah, okay. That's how we do it here in the States. So as a listing agent, I'll take a specific commission, and then I'll share that with the buyer's agent. And it's my prerogative and what the seller is comfortable with of what the shared commission will be. Huh. Typically, I like to keep our industry at a certain standard. So, I don't ever undercut the selling side. There's been, occasions where I've taken a discount on the listing fee and still offered a full commission on the selling side.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Broadly speaking, for the residential space, like what are the percentages for both agents and the split and all this stuff?
Commissions have been ranging between 4 and 6%. Sometimes it goes a bit higher than 6, depending on the property, if they're marketing it, and that's part of the incentive. It's a higher commission. And that really depends on a discount brokerage all the way through to a full service brokerage. And there's a range in there. And you typically get what you pay for in life, don't you?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Unfortunately.
Is it so? I'm assuming it's probably harder to be representing the seller than representing a buyer, right?
In which way?
Well, I would say making the sale rather than find. Well, I don't know actually. Now that I think about it, they're probably both really hard.
Well, they both have different challenges. And then depending on what's up in the market too.
Right.
Right. How's the market behaving? On the listing side, some of the challenges is, number one, finding the listing, right? And then being able to help the owner figure out what they want to do next. Mm-hmm. Through that process, you have to figure out, is it a good idea for the seller to sell? Number one. Are they, what they want to do next, is that something that they can do? How are they going to do it? And the value of their primary residence or whatever they're selling is what is in their mind in line with what's the fair market condition.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So we kind of talk about all that stuff. That's how I do listing appointments. Some agents go in and they're trained to go in with a listing agreement and just have people sign online. It all starts with the signature. It all starts with, we'll work it out. It all starts with a signature. And then they run away.
Right.
And they really don't have a plan at all.
Yeah.
Right.
There's no plan. There's a loose idea about what they want to do next, but that's all it is. I can't do business that way. Like if you tell me, David, hey, look, we want to sell our home in Echo Park. That's what's up, Glenn. And I say, oh, okay, cool. Why do you want to do that? Oh, well, my wife and I, we want to move to San Francisco. And I'm like, oh, well, that's nice. Why? What's up in San Francisco? Well, my wife's family lives there and she just got pregnant and, we have a home to live in and it just makes sense for us to move up there. Oh, okay, cool. What do you mean you have a home to move into? Somebody gifting you a home? No. We're going to actually buy it from my in-laws and they're going to give it to us, a little bit below market. Oh, that sounds wonderful. Good for you. Do you have a loan ready? Are you pre-approved for that purchase? No, but we're going to work that out. Oh, okay, cool. Let's work it out now. Let's figure out exactly what that looks like. Let's hook you up with a great mortgage advisor. Look at the different loan programs, incentives. There's really interesting things that these lenders are doing today. It's a hot market. We'll talk about that later. But we want to look at all those pieces for you. We want to understand exactly what that looks like. And then on the Echo Park house, let's figure out what we believe the list price should be and what's going to happen and where it's going to go. That way we can show you a net sheet. So all of the fees associated with selling will be on there. Your loan payoff will be on there. Everything. So there'll be no surprises later on. And then we'll have the lender that you're going to work with in San Francisco. We'll have him involved early on too, so we can kind of connect the dots and see what the net proceeds will look like and make sure that that's in line with what your new PITI is going to be, the principal, interest, taxes, and insurance on the new home up in San Francisco, right? Like let's connect all the dots and make sure that we know exactly what's up.
I love it. I think it's
Doesn't
great.
That sound like, how the fuck do you do business without doing that?
I don't know. It's a really, really good question. I like, first of all, I like the breakdown of like the general steps of what happens if someone comes to you. And actually after you did your little spiel, I'm like, I'm enticed. Let's move to San Francisco. Let's sell the house in Echo Park. But I really like the fact that you you start off with like the why questions. So when someone says, I know what I want, this is what's up, I'm going to sell my house, just give me a number. But it sounds like you sometimes intentionally say, well, let's like take a few steps back, help me understand the reasons for what you're doing. And the reason why I appreciate that is it's the same exact thing that we do. And we often find that people who have never worked with a designer or an architect before, they have their first meeting and they want to shoot out of the gate. They're like, let's go. Just give me a price and give me a design and let's build it. Let's go. And for us, it's the same thing. It's like, okay, well, let's slow down a little bit here. Like, help us understand why you're doing this massive remodel or building a brand new house. Like, do you plan on living here for the next 15, 20, 30 years? Or is this a house that you're going to sell in the next 5 for real estate value or whatever else?
And it's interesting because I think in both of our profession, it probably doesn't seem like it's very much normal or typical to operate that way. But if you think about it, like if you take responsibility in the work that you do and you very much care about the work that you do, hello, like, yeah, that's what everybody should be doing, right?
Right. And, let me add this on there too. How about the caveat that my experience, if I'm running the show and it's not my expertise, and if I'm running the show, there's a part of me that is nervous. There really is, if I'm honest with myself. I'm not structural engineer. Okay. I'm not a structural engineer. I'm not licensed to do that. I've never done that. I've been around a few of them on job sites, but I don't know what I'm doing. So why on earth do I really have a definitive of how something should go and why something should go? Mm-hmm. If I walked away from that and had that person yes me to death and just go, yep, okay, great. A part of me is wondering, holy cow, like, am I working with the right person?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So looking at it that way, to have somebody, and I run into this quite often with sellers, where they feel as if, because they're nervous or scared, they think it's a poker game with me. And they got to keep a poker face and they got to keep their cards close to their chest. And I'm on a need to know basis. Well, I've walked out of listing appointments like that. I've told people straight up, I'm like, look, the energy here is a little off. And it feels as if we're on opposite sides of a negotiation table right now. And this isn't what I signed up for. I'm here to help you put a plan together. So you got to tell me everything that's going on. That's why I'm asking you questions, so I can be more effective at my job. Mm-hmm. Just like you, if somebody says, yeah, just put the plan together. And then you say, well, I'm sure, like, well, what's important? I mean, you said light was important to you. And, we have to do this, this, and this to find the light, whatever that means. I don't know how you do that, but it's something like that, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to really understand what it is that what's going on in somebody's head. How else are you going to, really be able to hit the target?
So how often do you have to tell people that what Zillow is selling them is actually not what their house is worth?
It comes up.
Once in a while?
Half the time, probably.
Yeah.
How does Zillow, I don't know if you know the answer to this, but how does Zillow and Redfin and all these websites, how do they come up with their numbers? Because... I actually have it somewhere exactly, but I'll try to remember. So the broad stroke is it is an algorithm that bases the bedroom and bath count, public record square footage, mm-hmm. And other recent sales in a specific little cluster. And then they average it out to find value. That's how it's done. I see. So it doesn't account for a lot of things, I would imagine.
It doesn't account for bonus spaces. It doesn't account for curb appeal. Doesn't account for special properties. Like a tricked out, beautifully kept mid-century next to a traditional home that needs kitchens and bathrooms. It doesn't really take into mm-hmm. account the very specific details. Mm-hmm. So sometimes it can be pretty close. Sometimes it can be way off. It's for fun. Zillow themselves have said, boy, fun. Mm. They've said that.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, the CEO said it. You could Google that, and I'm sure it'll come right up.
I think they should probably republish that statement. I think too many people take it really too seriously.
Well, it's tough because, they're Zillow, Redfin, whatever. They're like the standards, and everyone goes on there to see how much the house is worth, if anything, for fun. But it's become this established database, the kind of the zero mark that everyone works off of. It's the relative point, the counterpoint, I guess, in a way.
I would not be honest with you if I said I don't go there too as a professional, but it's for fun. I want to see what I'm up against just in case it comes up.
Yeah.
I want to know. I want to know.
So when someone's trying to sell their house, and let's say it's decided that they should sell their house, and I do really love that is a legitimate question that you have to try to find the answer to. Even when someone says, I want to sell my house, you still bother to say, let's find out if this is a good idea altogether. But let's say that's been determined, however that takes place. How do you know whether or not it makes sense to stage a house, and how much impact does staging have, generally speaking?
Sure. So staging is wonderful. I'm a huge fan of staging. Typically, you could see, 5% higher or more in staged properties, depending on, the lifestyle that was created with the staging. And again, the market, right? What the competition looks like. Staged properties tend to do better and move quicker.
Mm-hmm.
It's expensive. To stage a 3-bedroom, 2-bath is probably like $7,500,
Wow.
or maybe more. Something like that. Maybe $5,000 to $7,500. We've also been successful, believe it or not, with virtual staging, which is a fraction of the price. You can do the same home for like $500, $600.
And virtual staging, what does that mean? It
gets them in. Oh, it means it's just in the photos. Then when you get there, the home is empty.
Mm-hmm.
But pictures bring them in, and then we're there to be of service.
Do you think virtual staging is going to become much more widely used and maybe even the go-to method because it's so much more cost-effective?
I think a lot of that's going to depend on the individual that's selling the product. And I don't want to get too far off the beaten path here, but I'm going to be 44 this year, and I finally got to a place in my life to where I'm putting a lot of value in people and less in products or systems. If you give me a person that's honest and willing to do the uncomfortable work every single day and willing to learn, that person has limitless potential. That's where my focus is now, on the people.
And what brought about this kind of, seems to be sort of a revelation? Was that it has to do with age, just the number of years of experience, or?
I think so. I think it's just how many times I've been here around the rock, going around the sun, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've gotten to this place, and I've had my share of experiences, and it's been challenging for me to let go in certain ways to a process that I believe is how to do things. Here it is. I keep a clear goal. I'm aiming for something and I'm going for it. I have to be willing to let go of how we get there sometimes and just let the people around me rise to the occasion and believe that they're going to do a good job. I've given them everything that I know, and they're going to make it their own. And that's good. And that's part of what I struggle with. And it's all part of the growth process. So yes, up until this time, I've been autonomous in a lot of other areas in my life that has held me back, I believe. That has kept me safe, that has kept me in control, that has kept me keeping the pie.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm starting to believe that a smaller piece of a larger pie, it's a lot more pie for me, and trusting that the people around me are going to rise to the occasion. And guess what? It's not going to be done right all the time. There has to be a certain amount of room for error, a tolerance for mistakes. I have to be okay with that too. So it's these small life lessons that I think some people learned in second grade. I was absent that day, but I'm catching up. I'm catching up.
Just a few decades later, but it's okay.
Yeah.
No, but it makes sense, and I think I was trying to visualize what you were saying, and some more specific words came to mind. I think growing the business. Now you have a group with, as you said, 7 people, and there's delegation involved. There's trust involved. So take us through, how long have you had your own group, and when did you start having, I guess, more permanent or full-time, or however you describe them, members of the group?
Yeah. So it all happened fast. I think the stars just aligned, and I was inundated with folks that wanted to join my team like 3 years ago. And I had a few more than I have now, and they went away. They're no longer in the business. They tried their shake at the big box brokerage. I think one of them went to Compass, one of them went somewhere else, and none of them are in the industry anymore. I used to say, if you can't make it with me, you're not going to make it. Like, that's just what's up, because nobody's going to give you more than I'm giving you. I share my book of business with my junior agents, which is something else that is rare in our industry. It's so cutthroat, and why we have such a high turnover rate too is you don't know what you're doing when you start as an agent, and then you really get nickeled and dimed with the big box brokerage, and then after your mentorship cut, if you are willing to figure out how to drum up your first lead, the paycheck is so tiny and it's so long that you need to get a job. You got to take care of yourself, and then you kind of just it kind of goes away.
Yeah.
That's how it happens for a lot of people. Where me, I share my book of business from day one. You're working with my clients. And so anyway, I started a few years ago with a larger team, and it really wore on me, partner. It wasn't all peaches and roses and good times. I was hemorrhaging a lot of money. I was sharing my book of business, so I was earning less. Mm-hmm. And I was working longer hours. It was challenging for me because now I'm starting to exercise all of these other skills that haven't really been able to do well my whole life, which is work with other people and, work on a team and, be rigorously honest with myself of where my weaknesses are and how can I do this? How can I really rise to the occasion myself and be an effective leader that people want to work with, right? So there was a lot of that, and it was an incredible time for me, and it was a lot of growth, and I'm in a completely different place today than I was just a few years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's an interesting point because I always remark for architects, and this applies to other professions as well, that just because someone's a really good architect or a really good designer, it does not mean that they're cut or they're made to be a good leader or have a firm and then they're responsible for people and be a mentor and all these other things. That's not necessarily the case. Right. They're different skill sets a lot of times, actually.
Myself a few times. I can tell you this one, David, too, which was really big for me. When I decided to take responsibility for absolutely everything in my life, when I was able to do that, things changed pretty quickly too.
Just as a mental shift. Yeah,
totally. And it applied to business, it applied to my personal life. And it's just, sometimes it takes me a minute to get there, when somebody, we have a Prius that I park in front of my house in Highland Park, and it's taken 5 years for somebody to vandalize one of my vehicles. And my catalytic converter was cut off, I guess, a few nights ago. And man, I was livid. I was so pissed, and the tow truck and the way it was parked and the whole it was a nightmare. And I was so angry for, a bit. And then it dawned on me, well, hold on a minute. That's my fault. That's 100% my fault. If I cared that much about the vehicle, I would have driven it up my driveway, as inconvenient as it is to have another vehicle in my driveway. If I really cared about it that much, I would have put it behind my gate, fence, and surveillance, And I'd had that car with its catalytic converter in it.
Mm-hmm.
But I clearly didn't care that much about it, so this is what's up. How come I should have if I want a different result, just do something different next time with the car.
It's a very healthy perspective on things. I can't say I would feel the same.
That's the same. But seriously, it's in the public's right of way.
Right.
I'm leaving my property exposed out in the public. So anything can happen to it out there. Somebody can spray paint a key. I mean, whatever. I mean, and then I have to be accountable for that, for having my property there.
You were begging for trouble, really. No, I mean, it's a good point. It's a good point. Yeah. So, I mean, I know, but what's the alternative, right? I don't want to fight you. I certainly don't want to be right. I just want to win, but and that's what it's all about. I mean, what's the alternative? Just being pissed off?
Yeah, basically. Yeah, that's the hard thing. It's just kind of keeping the larger view and saying doing all this is not going to be beneficial, and thinking more about. I mean, someone messing with your Prius is pretty messed up.
Heck yeah, man!
Like,
I'll put on my tree hugging, granola eating gloves and go at it.
I'd love to see that fight. You'll be armed with a giant blender in one hand.
Totally. Be like, get out of here! You want to see something? Yeah. So thank goodness it's not my primary car. Yeah. So I've got that going for me. But do you believe they're on back order for 6 months?
I think it actually happens a lot.
Oh, really?
Those things are in high demand. Yeah. I know in the Bay Area, they disappear like that. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. There is like a black market on those things, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I called Toyota and said, hey, so if all of these are getting stolen and they're all on back order, can I buy one back from the guy that stole it from me? I mean, where are those?
Yeah.
I mean, who's got all those?
They're like, you got us. We've been stealing them so we can resell you the parts. So talking about your group and your team, because we had chatted before this interview, and what's interesting is that the different members of your team seem to have different expertise in a certain way or different focuses. And you also had mentioned kind of nurturing that or making an effort on your part to understand what their unique talents and interests are. Can you talk about why you would approach it that way and how it works and the benefits?
Sure. So for me, real estate is a lifestyle. If you're getting into real estate and you want to have your weekends to yourself and it's 9 to 5, it's not the job for you. It's just go away. Find something else. Real estate's a lifestyle. If you're interested in earning $100,000 a year and just coasting, then you're not right for our team. Because, I want my agents to do very well. We will be on the map as one of the boutique real estate firms by volume in just a few more years in Los Angeles. My agents are going to perform incredibly well. They're going to earn very well. They're going to be top agents in the top 1% of what we're doing. How do we get there, and what does that mean? Okay, cool. That means that it's a lifestyle. We figure out what it is that you want to do. What's going to keep you going? What's the discipline that we can get you going on once your enthusiasm wears out, that you can live with and you can keep it moving forward? Make it a lifestyle. It's going to take you about 5 years to have a book of business to where now the business is just coming to you and you're able to be successful. Good for you. But that's a whole other thing too. Let's not forget, this isn't fucking rocket science, and it's not like becoming famous. It's more difficult to become famous. There's a lot of very wealthy people out there in business that have a system. You just create your system and you follow your system and you tweak it along the way. So one of the first conversations I have with my newer agents pretty early on is, what is it you want to do? What do you like doing? Oh, well, outside, I like hiking. I do this, I do that. I like playing softball or kickball. Okay, great. Let's design part of your business, part of your prospecting business around some of the activities that you like to do. So then we dive into how we can do that and how we can work that into their lifestyle. David on my team, David Clark, he's a big enthusiast of California antique enthusiast. He has a little Etsy store is what he was doing before. And he's been successful doing it. He's got a great little shop. So becoming a historian, an architectural specialist was something that kind of rang true to him. So we got him plugged in with, you know, those different groups here in town. And he's marketing himself towards some of the historic specific properties like the older Craftsman's, the turn of the century, the Mediterranean homes in the South Pass area up in the South Arroyo and Pasadena. And that's part of what he does. He likes to write. So he's blogging a lot. He's talking about, you know, what's happening in the industry, what's happening in his personal book of business. And that's how it goes. You know, we find what it is that you like to do, and we roll that right into whatever real estate is going to become for you while you're working the brokerage's book of business, able to put food on the table. That's the plan. So just like when I go into a listing appointment, David, and I sit down and I say, what's the plan? Like, what are we doing? Why is that important? I go through a very similar process with my agents. Then we have weekly meetings. My agents and I get together every week. Every other week we're in person. We're on Zoom the other week. I keep the morale up. I'm very hands-on with mentoring, with accountability. We track progress. We now have a front-end CRM for the entire brokerage where we have a system of how we track all of our clients and our prospects and our leads that flow into a back-end system for the brokerage for being in escrow. I've dialed everything down into check boxes on how to do your job. Every piece of becoming an agent is in a checkbox. And I can show you, because I proved it, that I can take somebody from nothing to earning $350,000 in 12 months if you know how to check a fucking box.
You're going to get a lot of applications after this recording. There's going to be a lot of architects listening who are in Southern California. They're like, you know what? This guy sounds pretty cool. Let's do this instead. But I was going to ask, like, so because being a real estate agent or realtor and being in this space, it seems to be very much a solo endeavor, right? You're the individual. Maybe you have a mentor, you have a mentee, but aside from that, you're working directly with the client. You're helping them buy a home, or you're helping them sell their home, or whatever. So I've always wondered, that being the case, like, what is the function of a group between group members, and then for you at the top when you're no longer at the ground level, so to speak? Like, what do you do other than providing morale and being a resource?
Got it. So the way that the book of business is working now is that, and this is pretty cool, I have been able to design my day, my workflow, to be able to focus primarily on my strengths, only my strengths. So the other stuff that I can do that is really just a distraction from being able to help my clients either earn more money or save money. You know, I'm able to now leverage my team to open doors. I don't do property showings. I don't do property tours. I don't work through escrow with the nuts and bolts with title escrow or, you know, whatever third-party vendors are involved. I'm not hands-on on the property anymore. So that frees up a lot more of my time to be able to make sure that what we're doing is the best way to do it, and that we're prepared to come to market if it's a listing with all of our disclosures done, all of our inspections done. I create a proprietary document called a material facts list of deferred maintenance that I kind of outline everything to be true and correct about the property condition, along with all of the seller disclosures of what they know to be true and correct. And we button it all up really tight. We give it to prospective buyers. And that allows my agents the freedom that once we get into escrow, we're in control. We know exactly when the triggers are to where they can turn and now focus on to the next client because the deal's done. We get everything done in the beginning. On the selling side, I do the exact opposite. So the agents are on site and they're doing all of the inspections and they're sending me all of the reports. And I'm going through everything, and then I'm creating a material facts list of deferred maintenance on that side. And I'm then organizing everything so we can show all third parties what's up with the property. and we can hopefully help the seller make a reasonable concession if it's necessary on either a credit or a price reduction. So that's where I sit. I do that side of the job, and my agents are in the field on most days, prospecting and working directly with the clients. That's my book of business that I share 50-50 with my team.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have their own book of business. And I think you asked me one day when I have less hands-on with them, which is the goal. And I've said this from the beginning. I want you to be more successful than me. And I mean it from the bottom of my heart. I want you to earn more than me. I want you to be more successful than me. And that's what I want for you. And I want that because I'm selfish.
Right.
Really?
Yeah.
And why that is, if I can download into 5 warriors everything that's in my head, and they're enthusiastic and they believe in the process, look how much more business I can do, and I can spend so much more time with my family.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I do today. I spend 5 hours a day with my family every day. I don't know how many agents can say that. Quality time, not like kind of half-assing it. My children are in real developmental years. I have a 3-year-old. My daughter's 3 and my son is 5. Mm. So we're reading, we're drawing, we're hanging out, we're playing, we're doing bath time, we're doing dinner time, we're struggling through the brutal act of brushing teeth every day. But I'm doing it. As a father, I'm participating, and it's so cool.
That's a great outlook. It's really interesting. The mentality of wanting the people that are working with you or for you to be more successful than you is such a positive one. And I would think, because that's always, when you're an employee of some kind, right? That's always the concern. There's always this power dynamic that exists in those kinds of relationships. And you're always concerned that you're going to be taken advantage of, or they're getting more from you. And it comes down to how many hours you're putting in, the kind of money you're making too, but also I feel like the mentality and the vibe that the owner or the leader is giving really affects how a person feels as far as that power dynamic in that relationship.
100%. That's why I left Sotheby's. Actually, I was fired from Sotheby's. I got certificate. This is going to be good for your listeners. I got a certificate for Rookie of the Year. And a couple of days later, I got a letter said I was fired to come get my stuff from the office.
What?
And why that was that I have an opinion, and I'm impulsive at times, I'm emotional at times, and that's just who I am. And I don't try to be everybody's best friend. I don't try to have everybody like me. I do what I do, how I do, and if that works for you, that's awesome, and I hope that it does, and I hope that we're a really good fit. Right. But I'm not going to, take away from who I am to bend to somebody else, because whenever I do that, it normally ends up being a nightmare and nobody's happy, and I don't give them what they want anyway. Mm-hmm. Anyhow, so I was in my office with my office manager at Sotheby's, and I had a listing that I was going to share with one of the top agents in the office that marches around banging on his chest that he earns over $1 million every year. This was 10 years ago. And I was a new agent, and I got a new listing appointment, a big home north of the boulevard in Los Feliz. And I was a little bit reluctant to go alone. I just bombed a listing appointment the week before. And I said, hey, would you come with me? He decided, unbeknownst to me, to bring a guy that he does deals with in the office quite often. They're not partners on a team. They just share business with each other. Mm-hmm. We haven't even gotten into all of that, of how the business works and how people share sometimes to whatever. But he brought somebody else. We got the listing, and then they wanted to split it a third, and a third. Okay. And I went into the office, I called a meeting with both of the agents who are top agents in the office and everybody would bow down to. Here I am, a new agent, not wet behind the ears. And I looked at the office manager who had agreed with them that this was the appropriate thing to do. And I said, I don't agree with you, and I think you should be ashamed of yourself. Okay. And I looked over at the top agent in the office, and I said, you should especially be ashamed of yourself. How dare you? You march around here banging on your chest that you earn over $1 million a year. I'm a brand new agent, hungry and willing to learn. And you're bringing somebody else, taking money out of my pocket. Mm-hmm. And everybody's okay with this. This is why people burn out of the industry, or they can't make it. because everybody at the top constantly has their hands in people's pockets. Why don't you try to give me some knowledge instead? Why don't you try to leverage me and make me your gopher? See that I'm willing and able to do something good here, and send me out there and break me off crumbs on some of these $15 million homes that you're selling. Why don't you teach me something? You know, and then I was fired.
Oh, I love it. I mean,
but I mean, I think every industry needs more people like you. You know, like we need to say when things are not right, things need to change, and when it's unfair like that, it's unfair, and it shouldn't be done that way.
It cripples the entire industry.
Yeah,
and you know, it's this level of greed that I believe comes from fear. It's just a place of scarcity. I don't care if you're making, you know, $1 million a year or you're making $40,000 a year. It's your mindset. If you feel as if the world's coming to an end, that's the energy you're sending out. And, you know, it's just not good.
Maybe you would be surprised or not, I don't know. But I think a lot of what you just said, any architecture professionals listening are going to relate to very, very strongly, because within our own profession, it's plagued with a lot of issues. And one of them has been and continues to be basically the abuse of people who are just starting off in the profession with extremely low pay, extremely long hours, and in a lot of offices, I would say more, well, I'm getting in trouble here, more on the East Coast and the West Coast, a lot of offices function in the way of having that black curtain when you're at the top level in the office. So you don't share your information. You don't really teach and impart wisdom to the younger hires because of fear. Exactly as you said, they're afraid that you're going to leave, can go somewhere else. But it's this cycle that the architects are feeding into themselves all the time. And there's a lot of burnouts in architecture. There's a lot of disgruntled employees and younger professionals. So a lot of what you say resonates with us for sure.
I want to just echo that for a second. And here's where I go with that. Because, I mean, I feel probably what you feel and what that man felt or that woman felt about someone leaving. Oh, I don't want to share too much, because if I give you and then you leave, you know, then whatever that means, right? I would argue that if you genuinely give something of value, where the fuck would they go? They would stay with you. If you're really giving them something of value, and if they leave anyway, they may not make it, or they probably didn't really get it. They probably didn't understand what you were sharing with them. Remember in the beginning of our interview when I said that my team was larger in the beginning, and the people that left went to different brokerages and now they're not in the business?
Right.
This is what I mean. I gave them everything and they left, tried it on their own, and they failed out of the business. So clearly they didn't get it.
Yeah.
They weren't going to get it with me, or they're not going to get it with somebody else.
Yeah.
Give it all away. Give everything away. Are there bad seeds out there? Sure there are.
Yeah.
Are you always going to get exactly what you want? No. But you can't win what you don't fucking put in.
It's also just a terrible way to, like, the weight that it puts on oneself when you think that way all the time. It's horrible. It's really toxic for one's own self-preservation. Did you ever but you're saying, you know, you impart wisdom, you help, you encourage, you nurture, and if they leave, either because they didn't get it. The other reason I was thinking for that taking place is if it was not meant to be to start. It wasn't a good fit.
Right.
Do you ever have people wanting to join your group and you interview them and you say, this is actually, I don't think I'm the right person for you?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and then I brought somebody on as a favor recently, and I fired them like 2 weeks later.
Okay, 2 weeks.
Because they weren't following direction. Or maybe it was 3 weeks, or maybe it was a month. I don't know. It was a very short period of time. But yeah, if you don't, my team is a bit different. It's not a brokerage where you're going to hang your license like Keller Williams and not get any training or any attention. And, you know, if you make it, great. If you don't, fuck it. It's a desk fee for Keller Williams. That's just, I don't have time for that. I'm not that. You know, I have a different thing. And if you want to work closely with me, and if you see the value in what it is that we're doing, and you're willing to learn and get in the trenches with us, the chances are you're going to do incredibly well if you were meant to do it anyway.
Right, right. You said that your operation is as a whatever scale and you like it to be smaller sized. Is there a maximum number?
For now, David, for now, it's because this is where we're at today. We've got plenty of things we haven't discussed yet of different corporate accounts that I'm in conversations with of how we're going to scale in different ways. But I'm incubating the Shelhamer Group Inc. team here in LA. And as of now, I'm at the helm of the ship. Mm-hmm. I'm grooming somebody on my team to eventually replace me so I can then be one step further away and just report back into one person.
Can you talk about what that future plan is?
Sure. So I'm going to be a bit vague. I'm working on corporate accounts. I'm launching a relocation division. We're in conversations with Disney and with Netflix on helping their executives come in and out of the area. I've built it out as part of a retention plan for the people that they currently have there. And we're building out an incentive program for new hires. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, which I already have launched, is seniorSalesAdvisor.com. And we're being a liaison between more mature adults that are aging out of their homes, their adult children, helping them with logistics on how they're going to get to where they want to go, how the transition is going to work. Are they going into memory care, independent living, assisted living, multi-generational living? What's happening here, and how can we help you get to that spot? So these are the two corporate accounts, and we'll be working with national senior communities. We have 3 of them that we're in conversations with now.
Wow, fascinating. So the second one, though, is that still at all related to real estate? Is that
we're selling the houses. That's where we would earn money. So the logistics hand part of it organically kind of happened with just asking the question, why are we here and why are we doing what we're doing, right? So I've built, a vendor list, people that work, exclusively for older adults, like Gentle Transitions and, different companies like that will be a point of contact and say, hey, what's happening and how can we help? Anybody that we can hook you up with, terrific. If selling the house or leasing the house is part of that conversation, that's where the business for us is.
I see. I think what's really cool about that is it seems to have been born out of a natural observations of like, these are the questions that come up when you work with clients who are of a certain age. There's all this stuff. I mean, anyone who has older relatives knows it's a mess sometimes. It's a mess. It gets really messy. And this is in response to that, basically.
Yeah, this actually kind of rang true. One of my agents is more mature, and she's a firecracker. She does great. Her name is Karen Jones. I'm talking about a new agent that knew nothing, and where she lives, she said to me, I want to be one of the top agents where I live. And I said, okay, if you do exactly what I tell you to do, and you really hustle, we can probably do that. And within, I think, 15 months, she's a household name. Just like that. She's rocking and rolling. She's in Pasadena this morning at a new listing of hers coming on, 625 Linda Vista. Yeah, she's just doing great. I'm sorry, what did you say? Where were we?
We were talking about your 2 other businesses and the one with senior.
Oh, how it happened. So Karen was working with a few older folks that had memory. One of them had a memory issue, and they needed care, and just through the negotiation process and how they really needed every penny out of the sale to help pay for their care for the rest of their life, there was so much gratitude and so much just love, and that was in the transaction. I kind of got that fire, I kind of felt like a superhero for a minute. I really made a difference in somebody's life, and we do make differences in everyone's lives, but something about the older clients, they're so grateful. And that's where the seed was planted. And then I went to the senior communities, and I visited dozens and dozens of senior communities in LA with a clipboard and pen at the beginning of last year. And I asked the questions. I met with their in-house sales reps, their regional sales reps, worked my way up to the founders of the company, and I've chatted with them about where the holes were and where there was opportunity for growth, and how we could help them with this new thing. And that's how that whole thing happened. So the last year, when I've been working on that project, my agents have been servicing my clients. So I'm able to keep my business running. The agents are learning. They're drumming up their own book of business, and it's freeing up my day to help us figure out where we're going.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Wow.
And the first business you mentioned, I didn't quite understand the one having to do with relocations for various companies, and that's also still real estate related. So you're helping people find houses.
So the executives. Okay, so let's say for instance, Disney needs to recruit a new in-house person for their legal team. They need a new attorney that's an expert at trademark, right? Human resource will put the package out, they'll get the headhunters, and they'll be looking for people to fill the position. So part of the incentive package is going to be real estate relocation. So if they're pitching somebody that's in Washington, D.C. at a law firm, and they want to grab that person, and that person owns their townhome, and their kids are in school, and the whole shebangle, we can be part of that talk of, hey, what's up? This is actually what's going on here in LA. This is how it all works with buying and selling homes. Do you have an agent there in DC? Yes, you do. Perfect. Introduce me to your agent. We're going to help you on this side. And then we help the executive as part of that package, making it that much more sweet for them and feel that much more comfortable with transplanting their family across the country.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And how did this idea come around?
I'm just really fucking smart, dude. I don't know how. I sit here and I think, like, where are there opportunities in real estate to help companies and help people that are busy. And, that's how that idea came up, I think, is that some of our clients, and it happened because there are clients, that's where it started. I've sold properties in the last few years to executives at Lyft, at Apple, at a few other tech startups, and asking them the question about what it's like working there and what it was like with this and that and their hours and, and how we hooked up and just how it all happened. Conversation goes back to, it would be great if human resources or with my boss or whoever helped us with that, gave us, more direction in real estate and more direction in, what we're doing. And the other thing I want to do is go into these places. And a lot of folks don't understand, how to build wealth and how you can do it in real estate in different ways. Like, for instance, we're probably going to buy a condo today in Los Feliz as an income property. And if it pencils out as a cap rate that makes sense on its face, I'm going to have one of my IRAs or 401ks buy it. Why not? I'm not going to have any fucking fees. I'm just going to hold real property inside that retirement vehicle anyway. You know what I mean? Like, think conversations like this, and then it's going to appreciate in the whole thing, right? So, I mean, we can go in and we can help people understand, options that are available to them that they may not know about. I just switched CPA offices, right? And it was with a very good one who has a lot of great clients. And again, for me, I need to feel as if I'm being taken care of. I need to hear what my options are in life. I have to understand how I can help myself level up. More real property, invest in more things that I believe in, create the space that I want, design the freedom that I want in my life. Where am I going? How am I going to get there? I need a good CPA to help me with the different tax shelters and, what I ought to be doing with investments and with money that's coming in. And how I need to leverage and what loan product I should be looking at too. Connect my CPA with my mortgage advisor. I need everybody in my life on their A game. There's no room for any errors right now. I'm 44 years old. I got 20 years to figure this shit out so I can coast.
Yeah. I mean, it really goes back to what you said earlier about maybe earlier on being having the whole pie to yourself versus then later on having a fraction of the pie, but the pie is much, much, much larger. But in order for that to work, as you said, everyone you're around, they need to be on their A game, and they need to be good people and honest and all these other things. And it's really, I mean, I was commenting the other day, I really just feel like success is especially for business owners, more so than others, is just about, not just, but it's about finding the right people around you and being a magnet toward them and going out and finding them and just keeping away the bad ones, or just going a different direction from the ones that aren't a good fit. And that's the game. If you can do that, then...
I limit the amount of exposure I have on a daily basis now with people, because people serve me. I guess this is what's exciting too about where I'm at in my life, is that I used to feel out there, I'm going to find something. And that's where success is. And it shifted to success is in here and in here. I have it all. And it's all on Instagram and the fucking reels. You know what I mean? I mean, it's like, just pick apart, learn. Like, everything is at our fingertips now. We can get rid of all the noise, and we can just really, you can put a plan together to do anything you want. And the information age is incredible what we can get accomplished. Going back to money for a moment, and wealth and building wealth. That's another big part of my mentorship in real estate. There's nothing worse than an agent is waiting for a commission check to clear so they can pay their late car payment. Nothing worse than that. That's not where you want to be. And part of the conversation that we have with new agents is you have to have a certain amount of money, or you have to have a job that allows you to work during the day with us in real estate. If you're going to come on the team, you got to show me how you're going to get by for the next 12 months.
I see.
It's really important. I mean, we have to figure out how we're going to make everything healthy, make our bank accounts healthy, our bodies healthy, our minds healthy. And it's a lifestyle. This is a whole thing of what we do. And goes back to what you just said about, having your circle smaller and really being mindful of the people that you keep close to you. I take what I do very seriously, and it is more than just a real estate license. We're building something special here, and it's exciting.
It's very informative and educational to kind of hear all of this, because it starts to outline very clearly how some of the issues within the profession and the stigmas that it has, it all fits in together, right? When people join and they get licensed too quickly, they don't have education, they fake it way too much until they try and make it, or they get undercut by the people above or whatever else. It all feeds into this thing of high turnover and the reputation and et cetera, et cetera.
For sure. And, it's interesting too, working with contractors, versus architects. And it's, just to scratch on this surface a bit. It's fascinating because, a lot of the architects, they come with the plan. And they, it's drawings, or it's the whole thing. And they, they may be involved in the permit pulling process. They may be involved in, soil sampling and boring and anything else that's going on as for pre-construction, bringing in utility lines. And, they're involved in all of this stuff. And the contractors, these are the ones that are executing. These are the ones that are there that are really, creating this thing and making it come to life. And too often, buyers or seller, the layman's, they don't see the distinction between the two. And they since contractors sometimes have a vision of what's going on, it almost, for the buyer or the seller, the homeowner, they think that they don't really need an architect, that they're just going to wing it. They're just going to go with it. And this contractor is going to create what it is that they want. And I can't tell you how many times things have been okay. You know what I mean?
You might need a remodel here and there.
After the remodel. I want to say for the record, we did not ask you to say any of that.
You didn't. No, so anyhow, I was excited about this talk today. I've looked at your work. I see the projects that you have done. And these are the type of properties that I want to sell. These special homes. Let's talk about the market here for a second. It's not a buyer's market. It's not a seller's market. It's a skills market right now.
It's a what market right now?
A skill. It's a skills market.
Okay.
It's a great market. I am so jazzed about this market because those weak agents went away over the last year that things weren't great. I'm just saying that
right.
I can have real conversations with people today because they don't know what's going on. And the stigma out there is, oh my God, it's a horrible time to buy and there's nothing on the market. The opposite is true. The loan products available today are really outstanding. You can actually have a lower payment today than you could have at a 3% interest rate. It's a slippery slope, but there's several programs, and working with a good lender, you can see what I'm talking about. But we're actively participating in the market today, and I'm able to have these conversations with buyers and sellers and talk to them about what's really going on and how we're going to get there. And they're talking with me now because their friend's friend that has a real estate license is coming over to just talk about, the price of tea in China.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
They don't have a plan and it doesn't work the same way. The market's not on fire. All we have to do is put a sign in the yard, 20 offers. Those days are gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Before I forget, I want to talk about architecture for a moment and how a special home that's designed, an architectural home that has something special going on with it, that is going to get multiple offers and break sales records in any market. Something else that people really have to consider when they're thinking about especially building new, let's create something special. Let's really work with a design team that understands what's going on, theory, but then can also, really help you create something fresh and brand new, part of your personality or whatever it is that you want to do. Right? These homes are always going to command top dollar, and they're really in a league of their own.
I'm very glad you mentioned that, because again, I think that's not the data that's being promoted out there, let's say when people are looking to build, buy, or sell. And it actually reminded me of a potential client we had who was very insistent in getting 5 bedrooms, right? It would be their forever homes. Their 2 kids were going to go off to college. It was just going to be the 2 of them living in the house. But they wanted 5 bedrooms in the house. And we're like,
wow.
But why? It's just going to be the 2 of you most of the time. Like, wouldn't you want to turn 3 of those bedrooms into spaces that you could actually enjoy most of the day rather than being completely empty? And they just have this fixation of return and resale value. The more bedroom, the better. When we were trying to argue, well, let's make something that makes sense for you and that's maybe more magical than the number of bedrooms.
Well, I think there's a couple of things here to what Marina's saying. One is kind of quality over quantity, or rather, can you have both? And in that particular case, it was, well, let's set it up so that we have the potential for 15 years from now, 20 years from now, when you sell, convert it to more bedrooms quite easily. But design it in a way so that currently they don't feel like a bunch of boxes next to each other, but they're performing as other activities for the other hobbies that they have. So it feels like a home that's meant for 2 people rather than you living in a hotel.
Totally.
It's funny with what you just said, because one of the questions we had on our list, and I've been always wanted to know, is what impact does good design have? Because obviously we have our opinions, but speaking as objectively as possible, we're probably a little bit biased because we're much more sensitive to the quality of spaces. But does having a house that is either very, very unique, kind of like you described, or one that's just fundamentally better designed in a more fundamental sense, does that actually make a difference? Or is it just about, I know you kind of answered it already, but is it just about square footage and number of bedrooms, number of bathrooms, and cramming more into the house?
Not at all. Not at all. Something special in front of you. And if you have a trained eye, you see why. If you don't have a trained eye, it just feels right. Right? And that's been my experience walking through hundreds and hundreds of homes that are special, elevated, smartly designed homes. And even when I bring in a buyer that doesn't, know anything about architecture, that's the home that's going to stick out, and it's going to touch them in a certain way, how the home intended to, most likely. Here, I'll tell you a really quick, fun story. when I was in preschool, I'll never forget this. You know how you remember snapshots in your very early life?
Yeah.
I was sitting there and I was looking at this little girl that was a couple tables away, and she was just kicking her feet at her desk. And I was just like mesmerized, just staring at her going, God, that's such a good thing to look at. I don't know why. It's just so good. But I still got it.
That's hilarious.
I didn't know what I was looking at, but it was just great to look at.
If only houses could be as alluring. They can.
Full disclosure, I think I was 3 years old. Full disclosure.
Right.
Yeah, you gotta be careful
This
what
is
you
not
say
a memory
these
from
days.
like 5 years ago.
Jesus Christ.
No, that was very clear in the storytelling.
It actually reminds me a memory of my childhood where we would drive around my hometown and I would see like those beautiful old homes and I would just wanted to like grab them and squeeze them in my arms, in my arms really hard.
Aww.
And every time I see a house that is just beautiful piece of design and architecture, that's kind of how I feel. I just want to rip it off and like keep it to myself.
You want to hug it?
Yeah.
Awesome.
I want to ask about what it means to try and find a house for someone who's looking to buy a property. Like, what are some of the biggest mistakes that people should try and avoid, or things they should do? What's up?
Well, and I think also maybe the trickier question is, how do you find that house that your buyer is looking for, like that dream house, that perfect fit? Like, how do you match a house with a client?
Gotcha. Well, most of our clients, a really good question. Most of our clients they're not going to get their dream home. They're just not. It's just a different client. Most of our clients are either first-time buyers or move-up buyers into their second home. Mm-hmm. Part of the discovery process that we go through is we'll get together and we'll figure out, why we're here. What are we doing? What we're doing? What it is that you want? I got the hiccups. We're going to do boxes. And we're going to say, do you need a school district? Do you need a two-car garage? How many bedrooms and bathrooms do you need? Do you want a view? Do you need off-street parking? Like, what's up?
Do you find that people, I was going to ask, do you find that people come to you with their list of criteria, and after a conversation, it's discovered that actually, no, you don't need some of these things, or there's other things you should be thinking of that you haven't thought about?
All the time. Or it's going to be which box is most important? Mm-hmm. Which box do you really need? Like where I live in this house, great house. I don't like the street I'm on. There's a big apartment building up this way that's just ugly. It's an ugly gray. It looks institutional. Like it's just not good. And I don't like that. But my other boxes are checked off. So when we're working with a buyer, we have a discovery process and we go through what their needs are and what their wants are. And we do our absolute best to get them everything that they want. Typically, there's going to be some sort of a concession that's made. And at the end of the day, they're very happy. That's how the buying process works.
It's interesting. I mean, for us, it's super different, obviously. But I mean, one of the benefits that we have when we work with clients to create a home is that we have more flexibility. We don't have to find it. We can make it or design it. But also we have much more time to get to know them and to understand the nuances and their kind of ins and outs. And I'm thinking maybe for what you do, you don't have as much time. Like we'll see a client, once a week, once every 2 weeks for a couple of years.
Yeah. So we'll get the list of what it is that they're looking for. And then what we'll do is we'll go on a property tour. Okay, first thing we do is we hook them up with a lender to make sure that they understand their buying power and what it is that they're hoping to do. Mm-hmm. And then if that's in line with the available properties on market, then we'll set up a marathon property tour. I want our clients to see as many properties as possible in a short amount of time. And they bring it. We have clipboards and we jot down notes, scribble notes, and they look at, how footprints of homes and what works for them, what doesn't work for them, the different bathrooms and fixtures and fittings and lights and landscaping. And, they kind of get a good idea of what it is, even if they didn't know, had an idea of what they want. And by 15 properties later, their needs may have changed in their mind a little bit.
Right.
Or what they're willing to do, or what they're excited about doing. Or maybe a house jumps out that is completely outside of the box. And guess what? Residential real estate is really emotional. It's an emotional purchase sometimes. I've flipped from people that have a very specific ranch style home that they need to get into selling them a condo in downtown. So anything's possible. You know?
So how many properties on average do you think a person needs to see when they're first starting off before they start to have the direction becomes a little more clear or crystallized? Is it like 15, 100?
That's a great question. And I'll tell you what the answer to that one is we're pretty good at showing you what it is that you need, what it is that you want. Sometimes it's the first few properties. I've shown people the first property I showed them is the one that they bought multiple times. Doesn't mean that we wrote an offer and they got it right away. They may have seen it and then, like, oh, we got to see more. And then thank God it was on market a week later. We went back to something like that. Yeah. Where it's the right house right away, but you got to just see a few more.
Right.
That whole thing. Other times you just know. Other clients are just ready to rock and roll. They just want to blast offers out. They're just like, let's see what sticks. I just need a home. We have to get over the hurdle of this is our forever home and we're going to live here forever. And this is a huge commitment. Yes. Probably your largest financial commitment and purchase. But our average client, they own real property for 5 to 7 years before selling it and buying something else.
Yeah.
It's not the dream home. It's a step up home. It's where you live for now. If you buy the right property, you're also going to be creating quite a bit of wealth. And that's just the way that it goes. That can happen today. That can happen 10 years ago. It can happen 2 years ago. There's always an opportunity. There's always a property in the market that's right for you where you can earn a fair amount of money. The primary residence that I'm in right now, I have about $1 million in equity in this spot in less than 5 years. That's just what's up. I mean, that's what happens in the LA market if you're okay. So the plan for me in this property was I'm going to buy a dump that I'm going to reimagine, make it my home for a few years. I want some sort of an income element on that property to help out with a mortgage or something. So that was the idea for the property I'm in right now. As we got out of our condo in downtown, we found out we were pregnant with our first child. Right? That was the idea for our first income property. So we live in a 3-2 in the front. There's a 1-1 attached on the back that pays the PITI, the principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. So I'm living for free. Space, right? And then it's appreciated quite a bit in a very short period of time. Like, to me, that's a very wise decision. Now, is it the property profile that I exactly wanted? No. Is it on the street I wanted? No. But it's part of my plan.
Right.
To get to where I'm going.
I'm kind of curious, do most clients approach you having that mentality somewhere in the back of their mind, or a lot of them saying, I haven't thought about this property or this purchase as being an investment, as being a step in the larger process?
Most of them have not. Most of them are, we're not really taught, in my experience, how to become very successful people in building wealth and real estate as an economy, as a society. And then a lot of the information we get is mixed. There's a lot of fake news. There's a lot of, news that's just fear-based. And it's not very helpful, especially for somebody like me that, I wasn't raised at a dining room table that was drilled into my head, the importance of investing in real property at a young age as part of a investment vehicle. It just wasn't something I was taught, and a lot of people aren't. So, I have a privilege of waking people up sometimes to being able to get what they need and also get what they want, and they don't always happen at the same time in the same transaction.
Yeah,
right.
Sure. I would agree with you also that generally most people are not educated or informed about these things, and you have to like go out. You have to somehow be aware of it as a possibility, then go out and then educate yourself, which I understand, but also sometimes I'm like, I don't know why some of this is not a little more common knowledge for the average person who's...
Well, look, it's scary too, right? I mean, it's also a scary thing. Like, let's say you have, $300,000 to your name and you have a mortgage, and I'm showing you, an incredible opportunity that on its face, I mean, it seems like a no-brainer. There's still risk, right? And like my grandparents, my mother's parents, my grandmother was always bragging about how they have $250,000 in cash in the bank. $250,000 in cash, and that's what they had when they died too. I mean, what could that have been? Who knows?
Yeah. I also want to ask you, with people who are trying to buy a house, what are some of the common big red flags that exist in your view?
You just got to make sure you're working with the right architect.
Yeah, that's it. That's the third one on the show.
Things to look out for is if it's a flipped property, and if we don't see the permits pulled on LADBS, on building and safety. It's always tricky. Who knows what's going on? Who knows what kind of work was done behind the closed up walls? That's a big one for me. Another red flag would be drainage issues, maybe, if it's on a slope.
Right.
You see things leaning, or if there isn't, appropriate, water runoff. Utilities, systems, age of the systems, its serviceable life, what the seller's willing to do. Is the price fair? Are the terms good? What's up with the neighbors? Is it going to appreciate? Are you making a smart investment decision? Yes, it kind of serves the purpose of what, the place you want to lay your head, but what is it really? I mean, is this fuck you money, or is it, or you're like me and you really need to, be very, very, very smart with your investments.
Yeah. Yeah.
So all these conversations come up, and could be red flags.
How quickly do buyers have to make a decision? Is it within 1 week? Is it within a day?
I mean, that all depends too. I mean, there isn't really a clear, easy answer. It depends on, is it a special property? Is there an offer deadline? Are they reviewing offers as they come in? What does the seller want? That's the one thing we didn't talk about with the red flags. I mean, is the seller going to be a troublemaker? Is the seller reasonable? All of that stuff on the buying side is very important. I'm not going to have my clients waste their time and submit an offer on something that doesn't look like it's going to stick.
The sellers are being unreasonable basically because they're just wanting to sell it for more money than it's worth.
Yeah. So here's something that I'm dealing with right now. Linda Vista, Karen's property we were just talking about. I have a troublemaker seller. She is the trustee and beneficiary of her brother's property that she's never occupied, and he passed away. Now it's her home. And she's done a few inspections, but there was a lot more problems, and it was an unsuccessful sewer scope. The waistline, I like to do a camera down to the city connection, if it's not on septic. And we were unsuccessful because of a root ball or some other problems. But, she's being a pain in the ass. She's a troublemaker from the very beginning. And I told Karen, I don't want to do this deal. Let's just walk away. She's already being a problem, and we haven't even gotten into escrow yet. And she's the type of person that would draw a line in the sand and say, if you don't give me this price, I'd rather just not sell it to you. I'll cut my nose off. And
right.
Excuse me, but I'm not in business to fuck around with people and their own mental illnesses. Okay. I can't with that.
Yeah.
I just don't have the minutes in the day, and there's enough business. I come from a place of abundance.
Right.
I don't hold on to something that doesn't feel right. I just never have. So some people say that I'm impatient or I'm too short-sighted with different things like that, but hell, nobody's perfect, right?
It's always the ones.
So
it tends to be, you never regret the ones that you have chosen to leave or move away from. It's the ones that you like, oh, I think it's going to work. It's
chose
going
to
to work.
stay.
Yeah.
Those are the ones because you want it to work, because you want to earn business and you want to do a good job for them, and you want to champion higher and you want to get this thing done, whatever it is. And sometimes it's better to cut your losses.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you know, it was never you to begin with. And I can tell you this too. Remember in the beginning when we talked about discount brokerages and lower commissions and standard commissions? I have never once discount on my commission without it being a more challenging listing. Always. Always. If they don't want to pay you a fair fee, they're not valuing you as a professional. They're coming from a place of fear. They feel like they're in control of everything. Why am I paying you so much? And then it's just constant noise and a distraction that you got to be on top of. You got to talk to them every day. It's just a nightmare.
Yeah.
A nightmare.
It's funny how that works. From almost day one, you get that vibes. And sometimes people are, I do find that sometimes people are, they're just very, very hesitant. And it's not because they are actively trying to be negative. It's just that they're nervous and they do weird things when they're nervous. Yeah. And then after like a few days, they correct themselves. But beyond that, it can be quite clear from day one.
It can. And, you know, and I've also come to a place where I've come out of listing appointments with agents and they've been like, oh my God, wasn't that uncomfortable? And I go, no way, that was a fucking awesome meeting. What are you talking about? Like, yeah, but he was so like rude. I go, no, he wasn't. He was talking with some conviction about what's up and how he really feels. I mean, this is what more can you ask?
Is that, you know? is this an East Coast thing though that's embedded within you? The just being straightforward with what's up. I feel like the East Coast vibes are a little more that way.
It might be. And I was also raised at a dining room table though that you can't, you know, you would have starved if you didn't raise your voice and get involved in trying to figure out how to get the mashed potatoes. You know what I mean? You had to be involved.
We're actually coming up on our time, but I
do want to ask.
Yeah.
What was
one thing before?
Yeah, go for it.
Before I forget too, is let's see. We talked about the process of working with buyers. Talked about red flags. Investigations are big. Buyers today, especially first-time buyers, you know, they're nervous. They've never done this before. So we make sure in our discovery call to break down the process and the steps. We tour properties. We check them out. Once we get into escrow, your earnest money deposit is typically 3%. You're going to wire that money in. If we have an acceptance, it's completely refundable. If we want to cancel escrow for whatever reason, if you go back to the house the next day and you decide you don't like it anymore, no problem. The contracts that we use are from the California Association of Realtors, and their legal team drafted the agreements, and arguably they're drafted to protect buyers. They give buyers the time to figure out exactly what it is they want to do, to investigate the property, to look at all the seller's disclosures, to understand everything that's true and correct about the property as the appraisal is getting done, as their conditions for their loan is being met. It's 28, 30-day, 45-day process. Once the contingencies are going to be removed, it's a specific document that I send you over. And I say, hey, guys, when you sign this document, you're buying the house. How pumped are you? That's the day that we're moving forward. Typically, that's 2 weeks into the escrow.
Interesting.
That's how that works.
My last question, I think, would be, is there a client or house that stands out to you as being maybe the most challenging one you had to work on or the most rewarding one?
Yeah, okay. Let's go back to Linda Vista, the one I'm working on right now. I didn't end that story. So since we have a troublemaker client, Stellar, who I believe isn't going to be willing to make necessary concessions later on, I've put together the material facts list of deferred maintenance in a very specific way to give to the buyer's agents, saying what inspections were completed, what the unknowns are. You're encouraged to do all of your own due diligence, have your inspectors and contractors come by before escrow. So for the next 2 weeks, I'm basically opening up the property to whoever wants to come by and do their due diligence. This is a strategy that I have to use to manage my troublemaker client. So that's what it is, and I'm transparent with the other side too. So I will be keeping a close respect to my fiduciary duty, of course. I just politely explain to the other side what it is they need to do to get a deal done. That's another thing too. I'm a big advocate and supporter of all of us winning. I want to help an agent when I'm a listing agent. You want to write offers on my listings, by the way, because I'm here to help you get what I need to get the deal done for everybody to win, as opposed to most agents say, do your best and final. Send us, your best offer. What is it? What the fuck does that even mean?
Yeah.
Please. What does the seller want? I see a listing price. Is that what they want? Or is it a teaser price? Or do you think that's, what's going to get it done? What do I have to do to help you sell the house? I can't wait.
Right.
So this is what I want to do with the other side. So I'll say, look, I've got a woman that's never lived there. It was her brother's home. She doesn't want to do any more inspections. Write your offer as clean as possible. We're not going to give you a penny in escrow. Do as much due diligence as you want to do today. That's it. And that's how you handle that type of a deal to make it successful, as opposed to the agent that just walks in and gets a paper signed and runs away.
Right. Is there, we're running up on the time, but I want to ask you, is there a sense of camaraderie amongst the various agents in this way, or is it?
I'd like to believe that people are all inherently good and that agents, all want, everybody to win. And I want to believe that. And then I believed also that there are certain agents that are just confused or maybe distracted by something else in their life, and or they're just not good at their job, or they haven't been trained well. And then I can create things in my mind, which is just my own problem, right? Of how I think they're behaving or working professionally. And really that's none of my business. Just for whatever reason, it's not going easy or simple sometimes, right? I hope I answered the question.
Yeah, totally. It's.
I want to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. Just because I feel a certain way, I don't know the whole story. All I know is what I'm thinking.
Right.
Have people broken the rules? Yes. Have people broken our fiduciary duty? Yes. Ethically, have those been grayed areas? Yes. Have we gone to mediation and arbitration and litigation in the past? Yes. Have I ever paid a penny in my entire career out of my commission for any sort of damages or wrongdoings? No, I have not. Have I been on the receiving end? Yes.
Okay.
Because that's the other thing. Please don't confuse my fun, charming, try to be silly, likable energy for weakness.
Sure.
If you're not doing the right thing, or if you break the rules, I'm going to call you out on it, and I'm going to take it all the way.
As exhibited early on with your story, when you were starting off, and you sat in the office with the two other brokers and your agents, and you said, what you're doing is wrong to their face, and then you were fired.
Oh, yeah. That too.
Hey, so we never got to ask you, what was your first career?
Oh, yeah.
Sourcing and acquisition and men's sportswear design in the apparel industry.
Oh, interesting.
So we have a whole nother podcast worth to talk about is the conclusion of this, because we burned through our time. But we'll.
All right. Well, here it is. I'm going to give you a teaser.
Okay.
Very quickly, I went from my closet in the Marina to being on the best racks in Bloomingdale's and Saks domestically, and in the best boutiques around the world. The problem is that I was working very closely with my business partner, and we then developed a romantic relationship that became a nasty divorce.
Oh.
It was really, really wild. We went up pretty quick. We had recruited a big shot from a denim line to help us get to the next place, and it was all happening, and then it wasn't when I met my wife.
That is a hell of a teaser for the next time. Glenn, thank you so much. We're definitely going to continue the conversation on here and off here. Thank you again.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I really hope I have an opportunity soon to just learn more about your work, and to, I hope that we can jump on a project one of these days, sooner than later.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for watching this video on YouTube. If you like what we're doing, then please support our show by hitting that subscribe button and liking and commenting on our videos.
You can also find us on most of the social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We're mostly on Instagram. And you can reach out to the hotline, 213-222-6950. You can send a text message or leave a voicemail if you have any reaction to this recording, any questions you might have, or guest suggestion. Feel free to send it our way.
Cool. Thank you for watching, and see you next week.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.